Ever imagine kicking back like an Egyptian? Not like lounging by a pool. I'm talking the good old days. Ancient Egypt, pyramids, and all that.
And who better to set the scene than, well, King Khufu himself?
Yeah.
We're diving into tales gathered during his reign, passed down, maybe even like told around a fire with hieroglyphs for shadows.
Oh, wait, hold on. Rewind for a sec. We're talking about those excerpts you sent us from Egyptian tales translated from the Papyri, right? By W.M. Flinders Petrie.
That's the one. Stories dating back to let me get this right, the 4th through 12th dynasties. So think like 2600 to 1800 BC.
Wow, okay, going way back.
Way back. In this book, it lays these stories out like a royal command performance. Khufu, maybe a little burnt out from pyramid construction, calls on his sons for a storytelling competition.
Whoa, talk about high-pressure family time. So these aren't your typical, like, history books then?
Not at all. More like whispers from the past, giving us a feel for what life was really like back then, how they saw magic, how they understood their place in the universe. It's not just about what they're saying, but why they're saying it.
Now that's my kind of deep dive, digging beneath the surface. And first up, we've got a story that's giving me some serious, like, days of our lives vibes.
No.
The reciter's revenge, infidelity, a jealous magician, and a crocodile that could rival any Horian movie.
And this is where things get really interesting. The story centers on a magician named Uba-Aner, who is summoned by King Nebka-Khufu's ancestor to, you guessed it, tell him some captivating tales.
Talk about a high-stakes gig. I bet those ancient Egyptians took their entertainment seriously. So what's the deal with this vengeful magician? Spill the tea?
Well, while Uba-Aner is busy dazzling the king with his stories back at the palace, well, let's just say his wife catches the eye of a young page working for the king.
Ooh la la. Scandalous. Okay, I'm hooked. What happens next?
Now, remember how we talked about those glimpses into their culture?
Yeah.
Well, there's a detail here that really jumps out at me. The story never even names Uba-Aner's wife.
Really?
Yeah, she's just the wife, almost like a possession.
That's a bit chilling. You think a story about betrayal would at least give, I don't know, give the betrayed a name?
It's a perspective, for sure. Makes you wonder how much of it reflects the reality of the time versus, the anxieties they might have been channeling through storytelling.
Because, I mean, we know from other sources that women in ancient Egypt, they could hold a lot of power, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So this one story, it might not be the whole picture when it comes to gender roles.
Exactly. But back to our story. Uba-Aner, he finds out about his wife's infidelity and let's just say he doesn't just ask for a divorce. He's the magician, remember? So naturally, he takes revenge to a whole new level.
Okay, I am so ready for this.
Uba-Aner, being the resourceful magician that he is, he fashions a wax crocodile. Not just any crocodile, though he enchants it with his magic. Then he hands it to his steward and says, hey, just toss this into the lake where that page goes for his afternoon dip.
Casual as you do. Ancient Egyptian problems require ancient Egyptian solutions, I guess.
Right. So the crocodile, it hits the water, and boom, it transforms into this massive beast. We're talking 7 cubits long, which is like over 10 feet.
Oh, no.
And, well, you can guess what happens next.
It's crocodile buffet time, and the page is the main course.
Sadly, yes. But here's where the story takes another dark turn. After a whole week of entertaining the king, like nothing happened, Uba-Aner decides it's showtime. He reveals what he did, even showing the king the page, still alive, trapped inside the crocodile.
Okay, that's next level savage. What was he thinking?
Well, it was a power move. The king is understandably freaked out, orders the crocodile destroyed. Uba-Aner seizes this opportunity to throw his wife under the proverbial chariot, exposes her infidelity. The result, she's sentenced to death by fire.
Talk about a cautionary tale. Don't mess with a magician's wife, especially if he has a thing for wax animals. It's brutal, but I guess it shows how these stories, they weren't just entertainment. They were warnings, reflections on, I don't know, the darker sides of human nature.
Precisely. And remember, these stories were told to King Khufu by his sons. Imagine the pressure to impress, to outdo each other with tales of magic, intrigue, and maybe even a little royal gossip. Speaking of which, our next story dials down the drama, but it ramps up the opulence. It's a story about a king, a lost jewel, and a clever magician who saves the day.
Ooh, intrigue and opulence. Now that's my kind of party. Tell me more. A king, a lost jewel, you say? This is already sounding less death by crocodile and more like light-hearted afternoon, my kind of story.
Definitely a change of pace. This one features King Sneferu Khufu's father, actually. It's called Lost and Found. And it starts with our dear king in a bit of a mood.
Okay, relatable. Even pharaohs have those days where, I don't know, the chariot just doesn't have that new kingdom smell. What's got Sneferu down?
Boredom, plain and simple. He's tried it all feasts, hunting, you name it. Nothing seems to shake this royal funk.
Ugh, been there. Though I usually just resort to, like, baking cookies. What's a pharaoh got to do to find some excitement?
Luckily, he's got Djadjaemankh, the chief reciter, on hand. Think of him like the royal entertainer, always ready with a story, a song, or in this case, a brilliant idea for a day trip.
Hit me with it.
Djadjaemankh suggests a cruise down the Nile. But not just any cruise. He tells Sneferu to bring along all the beautiful women from the royal court, dressed in their finest fishing nets.
Wait, fishing nets. Were those like the, I don't know, the ancient Egyptian version of a little black dress? I need all the historical fashion details.
Right. It does sound a little strange to us now, but it was probably meant to be alluring, symbolizing, I don't know, a good catch, perhaps. And get this. The story goes on and on about the boat itself. 20 oars made of ebony inlaid with gold.
Okay, now you're talking. Sneferu may have been bored, but he definitely knew how to travel in style. It's amazing, these little details, right? They just bring the story to life.
Absolutely. It speaks to their appreciation for luxury, their craftsmanship. But back to our story. They're sailing along, music's playing, everyone's having a grand old time, and then disaster strikes.
Oh no, the dreaded something always goes wrong part of the story. What happened?
One of the women, who is in charge of steering the boat, she accidentally knocks a jewel off her hair. It tumbles, right into the Nile, lost to the depths.
I bet it wasn't just any old bauble either. Knowing these ancient Egyptians, it was probably something like sparkly and priceless.
You're right on the mark. The story describes it as a piece of new malachite. That's a precious green stone, very valuable in ancient Egypt. You can imagine the panic on board.
Talk about a mood killer. Poor Sneferu, right? His attempt at a relaxing day ruined by a runaway jewel. So what happens next?
Everyone's freaking out. But Djadjaemankh, ever the resourceful magician, springs into action. He utters a few magical words, and get this, the waters of the Nile part. Just like that.
No way. Did he just, like, pull Bull of Moses? That's some serious magic.
Right. And there, lying on a piece of broken pottery at the bottom of the Nile, is the missing jewel. Djadjaemankh retrieves it, saves the day. Everyone breathes a sigh of relief.
Let's talk about a close call. I bet Sneferu was relieved. And Djadjaemankh, I'm guessing he got more than just a thank you for that little magic trick.
Oh, absolutely. Sneferu showered him with rewards, proving that having a magician on speed dial is always a good idea.
Yeah.
But beyond the entertainment, this tale, I don't know, it gives us another glimpse into their world.
It's like these seemingly simple stories, right? They're hiding these, like, deeper layers. So what's the takeaway from Lost and Found?
It shows us that even kings got bored, they craved, amusement. But it also highlights how important magic was to them, not just as entertainment, but as a solution to, well, everyday problems. And let's not forget that little detail about the boat, right? A subtle reminder of their love of luxury and beauty, even in the face of something as, I don't know, as ordinary as boredom.
It's like piecing together a puzzle. Each story, it adds a little more to our understanding of how these ancient Egyptians lived, loved, even found ways to entertain themselves. So what's next? Another tale of magical solutions.
Or sticking with the theme of, let's say, incredible feats. But this time, it involves a magician who makes David Copperfield look like an amateur.
Okay, you've got my attention. Tell me everything. A magician who outdoes David Copperfield. Ancient Egypt just keeps getting more interesting. What's this guy's story?
This is the tale of Djadjaemankh. And it's a wild ride. We're talking reattaching severed heads, taming lions with a word. This guy's got it all.
Okay, I am here for this. Ancient Egyptian magic always seems so much more, I don't know, raw than the stuff we see today. What kind of story are we talking?
This one's called Prophecy and Intrigue. It starts with Khufu hearing these rumors about this, like legendary magician Djadjaemankh. Intrigued, he summons Djadjaemankh to the court.
I bet Khufu was all about testing the limits. I mean, the guy built the Great Pyramid. What better way to be entertained than with some, mind-blowing magic, right?
Exactly. So Djadjaemankh arrives, and Khufu, like any good host with a flair for the dramatic, decides to put on a show. He brings out a prisoner, probably not having a great day, and asks Djadjaemankh to demonstrate his, let's say, most impressive trick.
You're kidding. I can't even imagine the prisoner's face. Was this like ancient Egyptian reality TV or something?
Right. And keep in mind, executions, they were like a form of entertainment back then. But Djadjaemankh, he's not into that. He tells Khufu he won't harm a human, which Good for him, right?
Ethically sound magician, I like it. So what's his big trick then?
Daddy asks for an animal instead. A goose is brought out, he lops off its head, and then, get this, he puts it back on. Good as new.
Okay, that's impressive. Even for someone who's seen a few too many magic shows. Did he, like, pull a rabbit out of a hat, too?
Almost. He repeats the trick, this time with a bull. And then, for his final act, he makes Khufu's favorite dwarf dance, though the story doesn't specify how he pulled that one off.
Okay, that's a bit of a head-scratcher. But hey, who am I to question ancient Egyptian magic, right? So where does the whole prophecy part come in?
Well, after all that magical mayhem, Daddy, he drops a bombshell, he reveals a prophecy. 3 children, destined to be great kings, will be born to a priest of Ra, and one of them will eventually overthrow Khufu's lineage.
Talk about ending on a cliffhanger. How does Khufu take that news?
Let's just say he's a little concerned. But that's actually where our excerpt ends. It's a shame we don't have the whole story. But even this fragment, it gives us a lot to unpack, don't you think?
It's incredible how these stories, even the incomplete ones, they can still, I don't know, speak to us across thousands of years. It's like eavesdropping on a conversation from the past. So what can we learn from Dedi's tale?
Well, it shows us how important magic was to their worldview. But it also hints at the political intrigue, the anxieties about lineage, about power that were likely swirling around Khufu's court.
It's like these magical stories, they're a way to talk about the really important stuff, but with a little more, sparkle and goose decapitating action.
Exactly. Makes you wonder if those prophecies were whispered in the corridors of power, adding another layer of, drama to an already fascinating period in history.
Now, before we wrap up this ancient Egyptian adventure, I have to ask. You mentioned earlier a shift in our storytelling journey. We're leaving behind those magical crocodiles and Nile-parting magicians. What's next?
Get ready for The Eloquent Peasant, a story that trades those fantastical feats for something, well, a little more grounded, a little more relatable even today, the fight for justice.
Okay, I am intrigued. Tell me more about this eloquent peasant. What's the story?
Our peasant is traveling to Henensetten, a city in ancient Egypt. He's a businessman bringing goods to the city rushes. Natron, salt the works.
Hold up, natron. Salt, I get essential for, well, everything back then, but natron, what's that all about?
Good catch. Natron is like the Swiss Army knife of ancient Egypt. They used it for mummification, cleaning, even makeup.
Huh, interesting.
So our peasant is transporting some, let's say, pretty important stuff. But as he's traveling, he runs into this guy, a foreman named Hempi, connected to a high-ranking official, naturally. Think of him as a small-time bully with powerful friends.
A classic case of power imbalance. Sadly, something that still happens today. So what does our peasant do? Does he just take it lying down?
Not a chance.
Yeah.
This is where the eloquent part comes in. He goes straight to the top, to the high steward himself, a man named Renzi demanding justice.
Gutsy move. But going up against a corrupt official, that takes guts. How does he manage to even get his foot in the door, let alone plead his case?
He delivers this incredible, passionate speech. And when I say incredible, I mean it. The text is full of metaphors, imagery, almost poetic in its delivery.
So he's like the Shakespeare of wronged peasants. I love it. What's the high steward's response to this verbal beatdown?
It's a mixed bag.
Yeah.
Renzi, he seems moved by the peasant's pleas, impressed even by his eloquence, but he's also hesitant to act against someone as, as powerful as Hemti's patron.
Talk about a bureaucratic nightmare. So does our eloquent friend get his justice?
Well, this is where things get really interesting. The story, it goes on for several chapters, with the peasant returning to Renzi time and time again, each time delivering a more heart-wrenching, more beautifully crafted speech than the last.
He's like a one-man show, fighting for what's right, armed with nothing but his words. I'm on the edge of my seat. What's the final verdict?
Well, it wouldn't be a very good story if I just gave away the ending, would it? But what I can tell you is this. The Eloquent Peasant. It's more than just a courtroom drama. It's a story about resilience, about the power of language, and I think the timeless human desire for fairness.
It's amazing how these ancient stories, they can still resonate with us today, reminding us that some things, well, they never really change, do they?
Exactly. We still deal with power imbalances, with corruption, the struggle to make our voices heard. But like the Eloquent Peasant shows us, even in the face of adversity, there's power in speaking truth to power, using your voice to fight for what's right.
And sometimes a little eloquence goes a long way. Speaking of stories that, transport us, our next tale, it takes us on a journey to the open sea. Imagine this. A lone sailor, a shipwreck, and a chance encounter that will change his destiny forever.
This one's called The Shipwrecked Sailor, and it's a classic tale of survival, the unknown, and, well, the power of storytelling itself.
Okay, I'm ready for a change of scenery. Bring on the seafaring adventure. What's the story?
Picture this: a vast expanse of blue, a lone ship battling the waves, and a sailor clinging to the wreckage after a devastating storm. He's lost, alone, facing the unforgiving power of the sea.
Talk about a nightmare scenario. I can practically feel the salt spray, hear the cries of the gulls. What happens
Well,
next?
our sailor, he manages to wash ashore on this mysterious island. He's alive but stranded.
Okay, so he's alone on this island. What's he do? Send up smoke signals, build a raft.
He does what any sensible person stranded on a deserted island would do. He explores. And as he's wandering through this strange new land, well, he stumbles upon something extraordinary.
Don't tell me. He found a coconut that kind of looks like a face.
Not quite. He finds a giant serpent.
Whoa, hold on. A giant serpent, like anaconda-sized, or more, mythical dragon-like?
Think more majestic than terrifying. This serpent, he's not some fearsome monster. He's described as being covered in gold and lapis lazuli radiant, almost godlike, you know.
Gold and lapis lazuli, those were like the VIP materials of ancient Egypt. Sounds like this serpent is more like divine being than backyard garden variety.
Exactly. And here's where things get really interesting. The serpent, he can talk.
Wait, what? A talking serpent. Now, this is where those ancient Egyptian storytellers, they really knew how to spin a yarn. What does this chatty serpent have to say for himself?
Well, first, he reassures the sailor, tells him not to worry, that he'll be rescued eventually. But then he goes on to describe his own island home, a paradise, filled with treasures, precious metals, fragrant trees, a place of abundance beyond imagination.
Okay, so it's not just a talking serpent. He's a real estate agent, too. Selling that island life, I bet.
Right. And this whole description, it speaks to something deeper, don't you think? The ancient Egyptians' fascination with the exotic, with paradise, a world beyond their own.
It's like this shipwreck, this brush with the, I don't know, the unknown. It's opened a door to a whole other realm of possibility. But this is where it gets so frustrating. The shipwrecked sailor, like some of those other tales we discussed, it's incomplete. Did our sailor ever make it off that island? Did he find that serpent paradise?
That, my friend, is the million-dollar question. And sadly, we may never know the full story, but that's part of what makes these ancient texts so captivating, isn't it? They invite us to fill in the blanks, to imagine what might have been.
It's like we've been given this glimpse into a world of magic and intrigue and adventure, but those final pages, they're missing.
Exactly. But even without those final chapters, the stories we've explored today, they offer us these incredible insights into ancient Egyptian culture. Their beliefs, their fears, their dreams.
It's been an incredible journey through time, guided by these ancient storytellers. From vengeful magicians and lost jewels to eloquent peasants and talking serpents, each tale has given us this unique window into a civilization that, honestly, continues to fascinate us.
It makes you wonder what other stories are still out there, waiting to be discovered, hidden within those ancient papyri, ready to transport us to a world both familiar and utterly captivating.
Well, until our next deep dive, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep those imaginations running wild. You never know what ancient tales are waiting to be unearthed.